Good morning, readers. Today we are going to be focusing on the Greek myth of Demeter and Persephone. And this slideshow includes background information and the myth, read aloud, as well as the link for the Google form to complete to show your comprehension of the myth of Demeter and Persephone. So notice for this myth, this reference sheet, we will be talking about Demeter, who is the goddess of the harvest and the earth. So when I think of harvest, I think of crops and plants and food. So Demeter is the goddess of the harvest and the earth. And then Persephone helped her mother, Demeter, care for the harvest and the plants of the earth. So Demeter is the mom and Persephone is the daughter, and she's helping her mom with her job. Zeus, we talk about Zeus a lot in many of myths that we read, and he ruled Olympus and he hurled thunderbolts when he was angry. Then in this particular myth, we're going to be talking about Hades. And Hades is the king of the underworld who ruled the dead. So when we think of Hades, we're thinking of the underworld. We're thinking about probably hell because he's coming from the center of earth, and we think of fire. So on the next few slides, we're going to have an image of him. We're also going to have an image of Helios, who is the god of the sun. So let's look. We have Demeter. This could be an image of the mom, seeing how there's flowers and there's weeds which would represent a harvest. And then this is the daughter Persephone. They're both beautiful. And like I said, this is just one particular image. Now, in the myth, they talk about a chariot. A chariot is this part of the image where it's, the person, the warrior, the god standing in, and it has a wheel and it's pulled by horses. So more information about Demeter and Persephone. We have an image of Hades, the god of the underworld, and look, there's like some crazy animal with 3 heads, right? That's not normal. And then we also have an image of Helios, who is the god of sun. Oh, and look, this is another example of a chariot. This one he's actually sitting in. Notice that this is an image of trees which have dropped their leaves, because in the story they talk about plants that have withered, and when we think of withering, we think of drooping and dying and death. And we also think about this particular picture. When the trees drop their leaves, we're talking about maybe the cold and the winter. So now, important vocabulary needed for this particular story. If I were you, wink, wink, I would make sure that I'm paying close attention to these words, particularly the word barren. So we have the word snorting. Snorting means to make a sudden sound through one's nose, especially to express indignation or derision, like she snorted with laughter. If an animal is snorting, it's to make a sudden explosive sound through the nose, especially when excited or frightened. So that word will help you when they're talking about the horses in the myth. Frantically means in a distraught way owing to fear, anxiety, or other emotion. So the woman wept as they frantically searched for the missing children. These are really great vocabulary words. Then we have the word withered. So if you're talking about a plant, it means dry and shriveled. And look at the example that they give, withered leaves. So go back to the picture before this slide, and you'll see the example of the trees with no leaves or they're withering. And last but not least, one important vocabulary word for this particular myth is barren. So when you're talking about barren of the land, it means it's too poor to produce much or any vegetation. So that would mean, if we're relating this to a social studies word, that would mean the land is not fertile. The soil is not fertile. It has no vitamins, or it's not in a good area. The land is barren. It can't produce much vegetation. So that's an important vocabulary word. Wink, wink, for your Google form and when you're reading aloud. So once again, here's a different image of Demeter and Persephone. So I'm assuming that the mom is up high and the child is down below, like reaching out to the mom. I'm going to read Demeter and Persephone. Please follow along, and please know that you can go back to this Google slideshow, not the narrated version, just the regular version, and you can use this text to help you answer the Google form, which I hope you do. So here we go. Demeter and Persephone. Demeter, goddess of the harvest, spent much of her time on earth, happily tending its fields and plants. She was often accompanied by her daughter Persephone, who was as pretty as a rosebud and as gentle as a violet. So now I'm just going to stop there because I can't go on. I have to remind you that those are figurative language examples. We are talking about similes when you're comparing things. Pretty as a rosebud, gentle as a violet. So keep those two illustrations in mind because we will be focusing on figurative language. One day, while they were visiting Earth, because remember, they're goddesses, they're not mortals, Persephone wandered off to pick some flowers for her mother. Suddenly, the ground split open near her feet. Out came a chariot, pulled by snorting black horses and driven by Hades, god of the underworld and ruler of the dead. He snatched the terrified girl and carried her down through the earth to his lonely kingdom. "Let me go!" cried Persephone angrily. "Return me to my mother." "Never," replied Hades. "You will be my queen and bring cheer to my gloomy palace." Up on earth, Demeter had heard her daughter's desperate cries. She searched frantically for Persephone everywhere, but the ground had closed up and no sign of the girl remained. Overcome with worry, Demeter called out to the god of the sun. "You see everything, Helios. Tell me what has become of my daughter." "She was stolen by Hades to become queen of the underworld," answered Helios. When she heard this, Demeter's heart filled with grief. She lost all interest in the earth's fields and plants. That's important. Remember that. Why did Demeter lose all interest in planting and growing? Because her heart was filled with grief. She was so sad. Crops withered, trees dropped their leaves, and seeds no longer sprouted. In time, there was little to eat, and people began to starve because there was little to eat. Zeus, the powerful king of the gods, begged Demeter to get back to her duties. "I will do nothing until my daughter is returned to me," the goddess declared. Zeus realized that he had to take action. "I will send my son Hermes. He'll bring Persephone back to you, but only if she has eaten no foods of the underworld." Persephone danced about joyously when she learned why Hermes had come to Hades' dark place. Hades, on the other hand, was very upset. Hoping to prevent his pretty queen from leaving, he placed some juicy red pomegranate seeds in the palm of her hand. "You've been too sad to eat anything," he said. "Before you go, you must try this delicious fruit." Eager to go, and ever so hungry, Persephone quickly ate a few of the sweet seeds. Hermes wondered what he should do. He called upon Zeus to decide whether the girl had to remain in the underworld. "Persephone may return to her mother," Zeus ruled, "but each year she must spend time in Hades' palace, 1 month for each seed that she ate." And that is why the earth becomes cold and barren every winter. Persephone is with Hades, and Demeter longs for her daughter. But every spring, when Persephone returns to her, Demeter is thankful. The earth becomes green and blossoms once again with flowers. So please click on the Google form to complete the questions related to this myth. If you need to go back and re-listen to the story or reread it, please do that. Please use the text to help you answer the questions and use text evidence to support your answers. This is also loaded in Google Classroom. Please go back and forth to check your answers. Please be sure to go back in and click Turn In.